Now, in a change to the advertised schedule, the Prime Minister and the First Minister are addressing the nation on the COVID crisis. It's a Scotland Tonight special.
Good evening. The struggle against COVID is the single biggest crisis the world has faced in my lifetime. In less than a year, this disease has killed almost 1 million people and caused havoc to economies everywhere. Here in the UK, we mourn every person we have lost and we grieve with their families. And yet I'm more certain than ever that this is a struggle that humanity will win, and we in this country will win. And to achieve what we must, I want to talk to you directly tonight about the choices that we face, none of them easy, and why we must take action now. I know that we can succeed because we have succeeded before. When the sickness took hold in this country in March, we pulled together in a spirit of national sacrifice and community. We followed the guidance to the letter. We stayed at home, protected the NHS, and saved thousands of lives. And for months, with those disciplines of social distancing, we've kept that virus at bay. But we have to acknowledge that this is a great and freedom-loving country, and while the vast majority have complied with the rules, there have been too many breaches, too many opportunities for our invisible enemy to slip through undetected. The virus has started to spread again in an exponential way. Infections are up, hospital admissions are climbing. We can see what's happening in France and Spain, and we know, alas, that this virus is no less fatal than it was in the spring, and that the vast majority of our people are no less susceptible. And the iron laws of geometrical progression are shouting at us from the graphs that we risk many more deaths, many more families losing loved ones before their time. And I know that faced with that risk, the British people will want their government to continue to fight to protect them, you. And that's what we're doing night and day. And yet the single greatest weapon we bring to this fight is the common sense of the people themselves, the joint resolve of this country to work together to suppress COVID now. So today I set out a package of tougher measures in England. Early closing for pubs, bars, table service only, closing businesses that are not COVID secure, expanding the use of face coverings, new fines for those that fail to comply, once again asking office workers to work from home if they can, while enforcing the rule of 6 indoors and outdoors. A tougher package of national measures combined with the potential for tougher local restrictions for areas already in lockdown. I know that this approach, robust but proportionate, already carries the support of all the main parties in Parliament. After discussion with colleagues in the devolved administrations, I believe this broad approach is shared across the whole UK. And to those who say we don't need this stuff and we should leave people to take their own risks, I say these risks are not our own. The tragic reality of having COVID is that your mild cough can be someone else's death knell. And as for the suggestion that we should simply lock up the elderly and the vulnerable, with all the suffering that would entail, I must tell you that this is just not realistic. Because if you let the virus rip through the rest of the population, it would inevitably find its way through to the elderly as well, and in much greater numbers. That's why we need to suppress the virus now. And as for that minority who may continue to flout the rules, we will enforce those rules with tougher penalties and fines of up to £10,000. We will put more police out on the streets and use the army to backfill if necessary. And of course, I'm deeply spiritually reluctant to make any of these impositions or infringe anyone's freedom. But unless we take action, the risk is that we will have to go for tougher measures later when the deaths have already mounted and we have a huge caseload of infection, such as we had in the spring. If we let this virus get out of control now, it would mean that our NHS had no space, once again, to deal with cancer patients and millions of other non-COVID medical needs. And if we were forced into a new national lockdown, that would threaten not just jobs and livelihoods, but the loving human contact on which we all depend. It would mean renewed loneliness and confinement for the elderly and vulnerable, and ultimately it would threaten once again the education of our children. We must do all we can to avoid going down that road again. But if people don't follow the rules we've set out, then we must reserve the right to go further. We must take action now, because a stitch in time saves 9. And this way, we can keep people in work, we can keep our shops and our schools open, and we can keep our country moving forward while we work together to suppress the virus. That is our strategy. And if we can follow this package together, then I know we can succeed, because in so many ways, we're better prepared than before. We have the PPE, we have the beds, we have the Nightingales, we have new medicines pioneered in this country that can help save lives. And though our doctors and our medical advisors are rightly worried about the data now and the risks over winter, they are unanimous that things will be far better by the spring, when we have not only the hope of a vaccine, but one day soon, and I must stress that we're not there yet, of mass testing so efficient that people will be able to be tested in minutes so they can do more of the things they love. That's the hope, that's the dream. It's hard, but it's attainable, and we're working as hard as we can to get there. But until we do, we must rely on our willingness to look out for each other, to protect each other. Never in our history has our collective destiny and our collective health depended so completely on our individual behaviour. If we follow these simple rules together, we will get through this winter together. There are unquestionably difficult months to come, and the fight against COVID is by no means over. And I have no doubt, however, that there are great days ahead. But now is the time for us all to summon the discipline and the resolve and the spirit of togetherness that will carry us through.
Welcome to a Scotland Tonight special. We have just heard from the Prime Minister. Now it's time for the First Minister to address the nation.
The last 6 months have been unprecedented. They've been the hardest many of us have ever lived through. But through our collective efforts across Scotland, we did beat COVID back. As a result, although too much heartbreak has been endured and too many families are grieving, many lives were also saved. But as we enter winter, and with many lockdown restrictions now thankfully lifted, the challenge is once again getting harder. Albeit from the very low level we achieved in the summer, cases are now rising again. In the past 3 weeks, they have almost trebled. And as the virus spreads, more people are being admitted to hospital again and sadly dying. So we are once again at a tipping point. We must act to get COVID back under control and protect the things that matter most to us. In a global pandemic of a virus with as yet no vaccine, we simply can't have 100% normality. No country can. So we must choose our priorities. Our priorities are saving lives and protecting health, keeping schools open, restarting NHS services, ensuring care homes are safe, and protecting jobs and livelihoods. It is to safeguard these priorities that I must ask all of you again to make sacrifices. Sacrifices for our national well-being. They are not easy, but please believe me when I say they are essential. We have decided that from Friday there will be a national curfew for pubs, bars and restaurants. They will have to close by 10 p.m. to reduce the time people spend there. And from tomorrow, we are all being asked not to visit each other's homes, because we know that this is often how the virus spreads most easily from one household to another. There are exceptions for care of the vulnerable, extended households, childcare and tradespeople. But generally, by staying out of other people's houses for now, we give ourselves the best chance of bringing COVID back under control. We can still meet outdoors with one other household in groups of up to 6 people. And because we know this is especially difficult for children and young people, we've tried to build in more flexibility for you. If you are younger than 12, there are no limits on playing with your friends outdoors. And if you are between 12 and 17, you can meet your friends outdoors in groups of 6, and you don't all have to be from just 2 households. Now, for everyone, adults and children, I know that today must feel like a step backwards. But please know that thanks to all your efforts over the last 6 months, we are in a much stronger position now than in the spring. Cases are rising, but less rapidly than back then. Our test and protect system is working well. It is tracing contacts and breaking chains of transmission. We have much more information on how and where the virus spreads, and we know what we need to do to protect ourselves and protect others. And all of us have a part to play. So I am asking everyone, please follow the new rules. They will make a difference. If you can and haven't already, please also go to protect.scot and download the Protect Scotland app, so more people who might be at risk of the virus can be traced quickly and asked to self-isolate. And remember facts, face coverings, avoid crowded areas, clean your hands and surfaces, keep 2-metre distance, and self-isolate and get tested if you have symptoms. Finally, I know that all of this has been incredibly tough, and 6 months on, it only gets tougher. But never forget that humanity has come through even bigger challenges than this one. And though it doesn't feel like it now, this virus will pass. It won't last forever. And one day, hopefully soon, we will be looking back on it, not living through it. So though we are all struggling with this, and believe me, we are all struggling, let's pull together. Let's keep going, try to keep smiling, keep hoping, and keep looking out for each other. Be strong, be kind, and let's continue to act out of love and solidarity. I probably will never find the words to thank all of you enough for the enormous sacrifices you have made so far, and I am sorry to be asking for more. But a belief I hold on to, and one I am asking you to keep faith with in the moments when it all feels too hard, is this. If we stick with it, and above all, if we stick together, we will get through it. Thank you.
On a crucial day in the UK's battle to get the COVID virus under control, the First Minister has gone further in the tightening of restrictions than the Prime Minister has in England. As we've just heard, a ban on the mixing of households indoors, which is currently in force in Glasgow and surrounding areas, is being extended across Scotland. One new Scottish rule, which is the same as in England, is that all pubs and restaurants will be forced to shut by 10 p.m. So what's the science behind the package of measures? Leading public health expert Professor Linda Bald joins us now from Edinburgh. And Professor Bald, will this be enough?
I think it will make a difference. I think what we heard there from both the Prime Minister and the First Minister was channeling a fighting spirit, but also underlying the seriousness of the situation. So we know that test positivity rate is up, even though we're testing more and more people have the virus. And I think the key thing in Scotland will be trying to contain that transmission between households, which we know from Test and Protect has been an issue. So I think these new measures, John, will buy time to get the testing issues sorted out, to make sure that numbers don't go too high, we don't have too many people in hospital, and we're in a better position to get through the winter.
But different from England. England aren't taking exactly the same approach.
And I think that is slightly confusing for us because I think household mixing will be an issue in England as well. I think that they are hearing about different parts of the country that feel that may be too much, maybe disproportionate. And so that may be one of the reasons why they've not gone down that route, whereas both Scotland and Northern Ireland have. But the key challenge will be looking at the data. And if pub closures, which in my view are a small measure, although they're hard for that sector, are not enough, then England may well need to look at that sharing or the infection just between different members of friends and family indoors, because indoor environments, particularly our households, are particularly risky.
If we go back to the very beginning in the spring, in March, when lockdown was imposed, there was a clear aim, and that was to release pressure on the NHS. How will we know what the success is here? How will we gauge it?
So we'll gauge it both in terms of case numbers, but also in terms of hospitalizations. So what we don't want to see is large numbers of people going into hospital. I think most people saw the projections from the Chief Medical Officer and Chief Scientific Advisor that we could have up to 200 people in hospital per day by November if we didn't act. So that will be a key metric. And then also looking at ICU admissions. So if those stay low and the test positivity rate stays below 5%, we'll know we've done really, really well, and we'll be in a far better position to wait for those new treatments, which are coming down the line, antivirals and hopefully a vaccine.
And if these measures don't work, would you anticipate that things might get even more restrictive?
I think all countries in the world, Israel, for example, has taken a huge step back and had to implement another lockdown. All countries are struggling, or most countries are. It may be that more restrictions are required, but I remain incredibly hopeful that if we can buy this time, then it will be science at the end of the day, as all the leaders are saying, that gets us out of this. So I think the key message we heard from the First Minister is one of solidarity and support, and she also reiterated the facts campaign. So those are the things that we can do ourselves: follow the guidance, follow the facts campaign, and let the leaders get the testing and the tracing up at scale, and let science deliver the research that will provide the longer-term solutions.
There are other concerns, though, mental health concerns, the effects on other health conditions, and might they not suffer again?
I think mental health, depression and anxiety, actually, I can already see from the data, has started to rise again. So we need community services, support services to be there for people. But actually, if we can keep COVID cases away from hospitals, we're allowing not only physical conditions, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, etc., to be treated, and that really needs to be accelerated, but also actually people who have long-standing mental health conditions to be able to have more face-to-face contact with clinicians. So we need to keep the NHS protected, and the solution to that is actually public health, to keep those cases away from the health service.
Professor Ball, thanks for joining us on Scotland Tonight. The Scottish Government's prescription to curb the COVID crisis is proving a tough sell to some business people. The Scottish Hospitality Group says the new 10 p.m. curfew leaves its industry staring into the abyss. Well, from Aberdeenshire, we're now joined by the bar and hotel owner Stuart McPhee, who's a spokesperson for the group Aberdeen Hospitality Together. And Stuart, on 2 points. First of all, as a bar owner, as a hotel owner, after all that's gone before, could this finish the hospitality industry?
I think it'll be the final nail in the coffin for quite a number of businesses, and we will see a lot of permanent closures as a result of this, absolutely. We have been subject to particularly stringent guidance, and since we've reopened, a lot of businesses have gone above and beyond, and we've all put as much in place as we could do to become COVID secure, and it seems that despite that, we keep being hit with, well, we keep having bigger hoops to jump through, pretty much.
It could have been worse, couldn't it?
I would agree it could be worse. We could have all been locked down, but I think it needs to be looked at on a more individualised basis. If, as to quote the Prime Minister, he is quoting that anybody who is not operating in a COVID secure fashion should be closed down. And as a group, that is definitely something that we would be advocating. Anybody that is not following the guidelines to the letter should definitely be closed.
Now, moving to another aspect, and you're based in the north, is it fair that this should be a national lockdown, given that the figures appear to be more in the central urban areas?
I think there's definitely an opinion in the northeast that we feel particularly hard done by as a result of this these particularly blanket measures. We've moved quite quickly from what was touted as a regional approach to dealing with COVID outbreaks to a national approach. Obviously, the data does dictate that is how we move forward. But I mean, the Grampian region has nowhere near the same number of cases we're seeing in other parts of the country, as does various other parts of the country as well. So I think for a lot of people across the country today, they'll be feeling quite hard done by no fault of their own.
Stuart McPhee, thanks for joining us on Scotland Tonight. Time now for a short break, but do stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple of minutes with an assessment of the politics involved. Welcome back to this Scotland Tonight special. To Edinburgh now, and STV's political editor Colin Mackay. Colin, we heard from the Prime Minister and we heard from the First Minister. What did you make of the statements from Boris Johnson and Nicola Sturgeon?
Well, it's not often you see this, a direct plea from both the Prime Minister and the First Minister, and it shows just the seriousness that they think the situation that the country as a whole is facing right now. It was a direct plea to people to observe the rules, to stop the spread of the coronavirus, which they fear is increasing and is reaching a tipping point. That's a huge concern for them. And otherwise, they're warning that if we don't do that, we risk the virus getting out of control, cases increasing day on day, and crucially the number of deaths increasing. So what we had was almost two parts. We had that plea, but we also had the warning that we risk this getting out of control, and a warning to people that if they don't observe these rules, we risk going back into full national lockdown.
What did you make of a lot of talk about a unified approach, a four nations approach? Is that going to work? Is that happening?
Well, there are elements of unity there. You know, you had them both calling time on the pubs at 10 o'clock. In Scotland, that will be from Friday. The difference there, I suppose, is that in England, that means closing an hour early. In Scotland, that means closing 2 hours early. So it sounds like it's a bit tougher in Scotland. And I think that was the theme today from the parliamentary statements. After Boris Johnson's statement in Commons, when he announced that, it kind of felt like, is that it? Then you had Nicola Sturgeon's statement in the Scottish Parliament, and it seemed to go an awful lot further with that domestic lockdown, banning people from meeting up in each other's homes, extending that from Glasgow and the west of Scotland right across the whole country. And you heard from the North East that some people there may feel a bit aggrieved by that. They don't feel that it's something that they need to do just now. The First Minister believes it's something that needs to be done right across Scotland to try and get the numbers down and the spread of the virus down right across the country, even where it's not getting as high as it is in the west of Scotland, to try and stop it getting there. I think where you will see a point of real national unity is the big question right across the UK at the moment is, what is the future of furlough? Now, Douglas Ross, the Scottish Conservative leader, asked that of the Prime Minister Boris Johnson in Westminster today. But really, it's a question that has to be asked to the Chancellor Rishi Sunak. It is, you might say, the multi-billion-pound question in UK politics right now.
Colin in Edinburgh, thanks very much for that. And that's all from this Scotland Tonight special on the coronavirus crisis from all of us here. Thank you for watching. Good night.